This podcast is brought to you by PLI, the Practicing Law Institute, providing resources to legal professionals and the law librarian community. For more information, go to pli.edu/librarian.
Hi, I'm Karen Osterly. Welcome to the Practicing Law Librarian podcast, presented by PLI's Legal Information Services Group. This podcast brings you conversations with and for the law librarian community. As a practicing law librarian myself, I've been working in legal information services for 34 years, currently with PLI's Library Relations Group. In this episode, I'm talking with Susan Hesse, Natalie Loeb, and David Sarnoff, and learning about their career paths, leadership philosophies, emphasizing collaboration, emotional intelligence, and how they leverage their strengths in varied workplaces and professions. We also touched on the adoption and implications of generative AI in legal research and in law firms, especially the challenges, training needs, and the importance of human-centered skills in evolving workplaces. Come join us. Good morning. I'm Karen Osterly. I'm Director of Legal Research for Practicing Law Institute, and I'm excited to have three guests with me this morning, and they are Susan Hesse, who's Director of Research and Information Services at Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen Katz. She's here in New York and has been part of the firm for over 25 years. Before becoming director, she was Electronic Services Librarian and then became Director of Information Services before accepting her current role. Her master's in library sciences from Columbia, and before that, she got a BA from Barnard College. And looks like she's a New Yorker lifelong from those choices of schools. And also have with me Natalie Loeb, who's founder, co-CEO, and leadership coach of Loeb Leadership, and David Sarnoff, who's Director of Strategic Partnerships and Executive Leadership Coach at Loeb Leadership. Welcome, and thanks for joining me. We're talking today as part of the Practicing Law Librarian podcast that PLI produces, along with a number of other podcasts. And Susan Hesse and Natalie Loeb are personal friends. And so Susan had shared with her our banner on the LAGNY website about this podcast, and they expressed interest in connecting over it. And so that's how this came about, all three of us here. So generally, we ask about law librarian questions, but I'm going to expand those to ask all of you. So Susan, how did you come to be a law librarian, and how did you come to be top of all the library and research information services for a monster firm in New York City?
Well, it's been a long checkered career. When I was in college, I never thought about becoming a librarian, but I was going to go for a master's and eventually a PhD. And somewhere along the line, I became very disillusioned. I decided that that was not the life that I wanted, being a scholar. And I was working as a student aide in the engineering library at Columbia. And wouldn't you know, just about the time I was getting out of that graduate program, they offered me a full-time job. So I was at the front desk. I was 23 years old, and the library was full of engineering students who were 95% male. It was a great place to be. But what happened was that I became very friendly with the reference librarian there. We became very good friends, and she kind of inspired me to think about librarianship as a profession. So I did go to library school. I sort of got into law libraries on a fluke, really. Oh, I guess this is how the world works. I had been working for a public library system, and I left. I went out on maternity leave and eventually didn't return there. But a friend that I knew through that system, her husband's firm was looking for a librarian. They'd never had a librarian. It was a fairly small firm. It was a part-time job. It seemed like a good thing to do with a young child. And so that's how I got into law librarianship.
So you were lucky to come to it early, 23 and change. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm a librarian. I've always enjoyed being in this profession. I like to do research, although I don't do a lot of it these days.
Right.
But I think librarians and libraries are wonderful institutions and wonderful people and do a lot for our communities, especially in bad times.
I agree wholeheartedly. I came to librarianship late. I didn't get my library degree until 2011. And this is my second career, but I was very, very lucky to come to it at all. So, Natalie, how did you come to form Loeb Leadership? And can you tell us a little bit about what your company does and what you do? And then we'll go to David.
Yeah, sure. I love hearing Susan's story, and I know Susan, and you can hear her passion for the work that she does and how authentic that is. And I think that's something that we connected over. My story is a little similar in the way that I came to this work very early on too. I always feel very lucky about that I got to begin my career immediately doing something that I loved. So my story, and I start from, I always say, if you ask my parents what I was like as a child, they will tell you that I was someone that was always around people, establishing relationships, curious about people. And it's just in my DNA. So when I went to college, I studied psychology, and that made sense. And I was fascinated about learning what makes people tick. And then my last semester, senior year at undergraduate school, a course came on the curriculum called Industrial Organizational Psychology. I didn't even know the field existed. But I knew I liked business, but what I didn't like was Excel spreadsheets, that my eyes would glaze over. The counting and the numbers never inspired me, but people did, and businesses did. And I always wondered how you put people together in high-performing organizations with different belief systems, different backgrounds, different lived experiences, different personalities, and expect that things will go seamlessly. Because it doesn't. It's intentional. People are complicated. And so when I found this course called Industrial Organizational Psychology, it was all about helping people perform at their best in the workplace. And I just couldn't believe the field existed. So I took that class and I said, this is what I want to do. And so when I graduated, I immediately started looking for graduate programs in industrial organizational psychology. And I found myself back in New York City, where I'm from. And I found myself at a program at Baruch College in New York City. And it was a master's program in IO psychology. And again, I was going to school part-time at night, and I was working full-time. And I needed then to know, now that I needed enough. I knew enough then that I needed to be in the human resources part of a business as I was studying this work. And I went looking for a job in human resources. And I landed at Skadden Arps in New York City in a big law firm. And there's the connection to law. I didn't know what big law was. I just really wanted a job. And the reason I got hired there to be part of the HR team was the director of HR at the time had also done the same graduate program I did.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that crazy? I always feel like things happen for a reason. And I thought,
me too.
Yeah. She wanted someone on the HR team that paid attention to the coaching and the developing of the leaders within the firm to help them gain confidence, build skills, and be supported. And I just loved it. So while I was studying this work, it's funny, my original role there was to hire other consultants to do that kind of work.
Right.
But since I was studying it, I asked this director and my manager, who was also amazing, do you mind if I do the work? Can I deliver the workshops? Can I design the workshops? Can I meet with the managers? And they said, sure. And that was what the firm was known for, to give you these kinds of experiences and allow you to grow, no matter what your role was. And so that's what I did. So for 10 years, I got to do this kind of work at this firm. And then my reason for moving to consulting was, for me, a work-life decision when our second child was born and my commute got pretty long. And 28 years later, here we are with Loeb Leadership. So doing this kind of work with wonderful people like David and other consultants that get to help hopefully make workplaces better places. That's what we work on.
Wonderful. Thank you. So your second child is 28?
She is 28. That's how I know the age of my business, because I always watch how old I never forget how old she'll be.
Yep.
29.
My son's 28 too. You can see earlier renditions of him
up
on the wall behind me.
Oh,
and then David, if you could tell me how you came to what you're doing and how you came to Loeb Leadership.
My parents would say I was also a people person since I was a young kid. And one of the ways that happened, just a little family history, my dad was one of the last of the old-time seltzer men in New York City on the Upper West Side in the Bronx. And when I was 10 years old, he had me knocking on apartment doors of strangers to take orders. And I had to be, engaging and talk to them and look them in the eye. And it was incredible training for my career. My mother also sold men's suits in Lord & Taylor, and I learned how to give direct feedback and tell people what they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear. And so while I was a junior in college, I got a job that summer as a paralegal for a law firm in New York, now known as Wachtell Misri, no relation to Susan's firm. And it, like most law firms in the 80s and 90s, it was a fairly hard driving place, fast paced, long hours. I got incredible experience, worked on some high profile matters, and did that for a couple of years, and then ended up going to Rutgers Law School, and I clerked at the firm and came out as a litigation associate. And while I was in law school, I was working on a case helping draft briefs. And when I graduated law school that fall, the case went to trial. So right out of law school, I was second seating a trial in Chancery Court in New Jersey, and the judge was the former Attorney General of New Jersey.
My goodness.
And we ended up winning a decisive case that set precedent law. And I was energized by that. And as I got more into my career, it's like a cake eating contest and the prize is more cake. I ended up second chairing and third chairing and working on several trial teams. And over the years, that took a toll on me. And I did get burned out going into the late 90s. And I went to a recruiter to explore the market during the dot-com boom. And at the time, the owner of the search firm said, "Hey, would you consider doing what I do? I think you'd be good at it." And it was the last thing on my mind, never considered it, but I was at a sufficient pain point in my career that I saw it as an exit. And I ended up making that leap and did have success and enjoyed doing the coaching and consulting and recruiting work. And after 5 years, two colleagues and I left, and we started our own search firm, Morandi, Taub, and Sarnoff, that ran for about a dozen years. And I gravitated to the coaching and presenting, and I discovered formal executive coaching around 10 years ago. And through a mutual friend, I was introduced to Natalie. And I learned more about it, what she does and her company, and ended up going to the iCoach, what was called the iCoach New York executive coaching program affiliated with the Zicklin School of Business at Baruch that Natalie went to. And now it's called iCoach Global, and I'm a proud faculty member of that program. And after being in that program, I believe I found what I was meant to do and did a deep dive into emotional intelligence, got certified in the EQI assessment like Natalie, and just love coaching and facilitating workshops to help managers, leaders, high performers be more effective in the work that they do. Or if they have gaps around self-awareness and communication, how to help them be stronger. And the last thing, I do have a connection to the library world. My wife has been the president of the public library in our town for 15 years.
Oh my goodness. That is wonderful. And so, yeah, I'm just always intrigued when I interview people on these podcast episodes to find out their path to how they got. And all of us, were touched by serendipity and meetings and mutual acquaintances that helped us out. So several of us have public library history. Anyway, it's just wonderful. I'm delighted to hear your stories. So I want to talk about leadership. And so I want to ask each of you, Susan, let me go back to you. If you could talk about, because you're a strong, well-known, deeply respected law librarian in the New York community and also in the national community. That's the American Association of Law Librarians. Can you talk about some of the leadership roles or work you've done, whether it's in the firm or associations or other areas, other groups?
Well, I thought about this a lot, really. And my main takeaway about leadership is that nobody does it alone. My firm it's well known. We're very small compared to the firms that we play with in that league. And so you could say, well, that gives you a nimbleness to take just the business that you want. not represent clients on everything that they do because we don't have the bandwidth. And the same is true on the administrative side. So the way that you're judged on your accomplishments. And to do that, you really have to reach out and form partnerships with other departments. I think successfully formed partnerships with pieces of the IT department that touch on things that I want to do, which is the application development people and some other groups that do some back end stuff like making single sign-on work and stuff like that. But we don't have like layers and layers of people like innovation directors and knowledge management directors and knowledge management attorneys. We kind of have to do it ourselves. So there we are, leading the way because there aren't all these support people to do it for us. And the other aspect of not doing it alone is that I have been really blessed with a wonderful staff for all these years. I don't know how I could have managed if I hadn't had that. And I have worked as hard as I could to keep them happy and doing things that they find rewarding. And I've discovered that in terms of mentoring people and leading people, people are different. I used to think when I first got into managerial position, I like autonomy. I like to be left alone to do my thing. And not everybody is like that. I just thought everyone would appreciate autonomy, but they didn't. Some people really needed more guidance, more hands-on, or whatever it was. And the other thing is, the third thing, which I'll talk about, is that I don't inherently consider myself a great people person. I'm kind of more cerebral in that sense, but I picked for an assistant somebody who is the quintessential people person. And so between the two of us, we really cover all the bases and keep everybody motivated.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I have you guys, Natalie and David, I don't know if you know this, Susan's people stay with her for years and years and years. There's very little turnover, which is unusual at a world-class firm. Usually there's much more turnover and you're always looking for somebody, but I don't know that I've ever seen postings for openings at Wachtell.
We're coming to a point now where we have a little turnover, but it's retirements, right? Because people have been there so long and it's just time to go.
Right. But clearly people love working for you. And I want to just address the last point because a good friend of mine was divorced years ago, and now she's with a gentleman who was a professor of physics and calculus. And they talk about how they have non-redundant skill sets. They're very different, but they have non-redundant skill sets. And so everything they need is there. And so you and your assistant that you've chosen, your non-redundant skill sets, there are probably some overlap, but you've chosen a people person. So that's very interesting. Thank you. Yeah. Natalie, can you talk a bit about leadership? That's what you guys do, is leadership coaching. Can you talk a bit about your leadership?
Sure. Well, yes, I would love to. But I also, if you don't mind, as I'm listening to Susan's story, it's such a beautiful representation of leadership. She said so many things that as studiers of leadership, like David and I are, we love to hear, coming out of leaders' mouths. So for example, when Susan said nobody does it alone, that is so true with leadership. We need others around us. We need to be successful. It's our job to inspire those team members that stay with Susan for so long to want to stay and want to do great work. And that's what leadership is. So I look at leadership is that it's our jobs to inspire those around us to want to follow us. We can't make anybody do anything. We can't control others, if you will. But it's our jobs to inspire others. And how do we do that? And Susan was talking about that too. So we nurture relationships. We notice that we support those that are around us to give them what they need, the resources and the tools to be successful. We encourage them. We give them the benefit of the doubt. We also hold people accountable and we give them feedback. And feedback is not, it can, I know Dave will talk a little bit about that too, because I know he feels really strongly about that as I do. And we deliver it in a way that shows that we care about their careers and we care about their development. And when we can build those types of relationships with the people around us, you will notice that folks then all want to work together towards a common objective and a common goal. And it feels good. And ultimately, we feel as though the people around us feel that they're cared about, that their careers matter, and it's our jobs to help them be successful.
Thank you.
So that's what I would say about leadership, and that what I see great leaders doing. And I will say this, leadership can be stressful. There's various personalities. And it's funny I love again how Susan said, I hired someone different than I am to be able to make sure that we have both types of styles as part of our team. That's a brilliant idea. And that probably sounds like it was intentional. And that way, that you're able to service those around you with different types of folks, because different types of folks handle things differently. But we can all move towards a common goal. Yeah, I love that. I've met some leaders that sometimes have what we'll call the just like me bias, where they think the only person that can be successful is someone just like them. And in the long term, that doesn't always work out as the way they expected. Rather, when they think a little more strategically in building a team with a variety of skill sets and approaches and communication styles. So that was really interesting to hear that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
And David, same question?
Yeah, it's obviously leadership is an incredibly broad topic. And throughout my career, I've worked for what I believe were highly effective leaders. And I worked for leaders who I believe fell far short of expectations or what would be effective. But I learned from all of them. And for me, again, emotional intelligence is foundational to an effective leader. Whether they're an extrovert or an introvert is immaterial. Does the leader have the self-awareness to recognize how they show up, how they're perceived, and what the impact of their words and actions are on other people? And in many cases, they don't. They don't read body language, nonverbal communication, facial expressions. And that's really important to what they're communicating to somebody else. I mean, the goal of a leader, in my opinion, is to motivate and inspire, but also to drive performance through other people. And that requires, like what thought leaders like Brene Brown or Daniel Goleman would say, are having the empathy to understand somebody else's circumstances and what resources and support do they need to thrive and be successful. In the legal profession, I think there's an added layer of difficulty to lead in any role, because what the research also shows is that lawyers have a personality profile that is unique compared to the general population. And if you read Martin Seligman, who was a pioneer in positive psychology, and Larry Richard, who was a lawyer and went back to school and became a psychologist who has studied lawyer personality, lawyers are outliers high in skepticism and pessimism, and outliers low in trust, resilience, and sociability. So they like to work alone. They don't recover well from failure. They don't typically like to get feedback of what they didn't do well. So recognizing that and raising your self-awareness to how can I make adjustments to connect to people to be more effective, particularly with the generational shift that is happening in the workplace, because behaviors that were tolerated 15, 20 years ago are not tolerated by many in the workplace today.
Right. Thank you. I want to talk about PLI just for a few moments. And David, you write for us. You guys just came out with a book, and you also do a monthly publication in one of our open access periodicals, The Chronicle. It's called Coach's Counsel, and it touches on, very timely topics and subject matter and questions and things like that. David, do you use PLI in your work at all? PLI resources? And it may be no.
I use them for the most part to see what the current topics are for many of my clients. What are the trends? What are the innovations? Where might there be challenges that people are sharing in other briefings or writings or webinars. So I think it does give me a holistic view of the issues, challenges, and what people are thinking in the legal market at any given time.
Well, that's great to know. I had never thought of that, but you use PLI resources to inform yourself as one of many sources. And Natalie, same question. Again, we're so appreciative that you do. I manage the periodicals for PLI. So I manage Elise and Jenna. And so you guys have been working with us a long time, and we appreciate that. So Natalie, do you use PLI or PLI resources in your work?
Just as David said, yes, absolutely, in the same capacity. Obviously, like scanning for the types of the briefings that are out there, what people are talking about. My eye is more focused on, I would say, the leadership issues, how the firms are run, culture, because we're paying attention to that all of the time. And we like to hear what people are experiencing. And I also will say, I know you give a little bit of a shout out there to Elise. She is amazing. Elise Greer as our editor. And it's funny. She is also what I love. And I love about the folks at PLI. Boy, is she candid. So, we might submit an article, and I think I submitted one a couple of months ago, and she sent it back. She was like, these thoughts, Nat, but I think it's a little bit, we need to get a little more specific here or drill down. And we always talk about like the way she delivers the feedback to me, and we think about the things that we write about. And I think, thank you for delivering it with that spirit of learning. And then I can, re-edit it and send it back. And she's just wonderfully talented at helping us, our columns, look good. And she said to me, she goes, I like that. That's what my job is, to make my authors shine. And again, I when you hear that, there's something going on within the organization itself where she wants to do the best work that she can do. So somewhere along the way, right, leadership is also inspiring Elise, which inspires us. And this is all part of, what we look out for. So I think I see David nodding because we experience this a lot as we work with all of you there and the team there. It's been amazing.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, I echo that Elise has been an incredible support and guide for us. But just PLI as an organization has been innovative, adaptable, agile. Natalie and I have pitched some interesting and unique ideas over the years. We have never been told no.
Oh,
and we've pushed the envelope a bit, and PLI has just given us incredible freedom and to innovate and be creative. And we're so appreciative of that.
And again, it's a culture that must be shared there or established there that allows us as contributors to feel comfortable to bring thoughts to the table. And that's all part of leadership, right? It really is. And I have experienced myself over time. And it's funny when David mentioned Dr. Martin Seligman, the grandfather of positive psychology. And that work really, I think it was the 80s when it started, when Marcus Buckingham wrote a book, Now Go Discover Your Strengths. And he based it on some of the Clifton research and then Seligman research. But the whole idea that leaders and managers could be successful by managing to people's strengths rather than their weaknesses was groundbreaking. And this whole positive psychology movement has really taken on. And, it's a whole other topic that we could talk about. But when it first came out, I read that book and I loved it because I'm very much about leveraging your strengths. Because when you're leveraging your strengths and using your strengths, and even you hear Susan's story, that she came right out of the gate wanting to do this. And clearly she developed these strengths and talent. And you love what you do. When you're using those strengths, you're successful, you're good at it, and your self-esteem goes up and you feel good about what you do. So it makes a lot of sense. I remember when that book came out and I read it, I loved it. I said, okay, now there's a book to sort of validate what I was feeling inside. And I brought it to a law firm and I shared the idea. And somebody said to me, strengths, leverage your strengths. Why would we want to leverage strengths? We have to fix weaknesses. And I remember right there, right? It's like, wow, look at the thinking. This is going to be a bowling ball, pushing it uphill to help people understand there's a new way to look at leadership. And, certainly David and I over the years have seen how powerful the strengths model can be. And as a matter of fact, there's a tool on the market called the Strengths Finder. We use it sometimes with our clients. And we do find with lawyers often that's a nice tool to use because it's leveraging their strengths, right? We're going to strengths. And let's think about what you're good at. So it's less critical, if you will, right? Because we're looking already what you're using that's working for you. So.
I think people must feel somewhat empowered when they're in a session and somebody says, well, you're really good at this, instead of, saying, we need to fix this. You're not so good at that, right? That doesn't make you feel great.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you for the quick and honest feedback, Susan. So your answer might be a little bit different. How? Because you guys are a big customer of ours. You have our CLE. You're what we call a privileged member. Everyone in the firm has access to all the CLEs that we produce, and then also you have PLI Plus. So I'm going to ask how you guys use PLI at Wachtell.
Well, we love PLI because it's just a treasure trove of infinite amounts of materials on all different subjects.
Thank you.
And, sometimes you get a question that's kind of out of left field and you haven't built up resources in that area, maybe, and you could go to PLI and maybe find something there.
Right.
And it's free. Well, it's not free. We pay for it. But for our users, they can just go in, and it's very easy to use the platform, the PLI Plus book platform, where you can download chapters, you can search by chapters. And I don't manage the CLE portion. That's done by our legal personnel and recruiting department.
Right.
But I do know that our attorneys take advantage of those CLE programs.
Great. Yeah, I was astonished. My background is I started with Matthew Bender in 1989. And David, you know them, Natalie. If you don't know them, they're a mid-sized, smallish legal publisher. And then we were purchased by Reed Elsevier in 1998. Anyway, Susan was a client of mine in New York. I was her Matthew Bender rep for a period of years, and that's how we know each other. And then we went to Reed Elsevier, and then somewhere along the way, I realized that was the job I should have, the job that you have, Susan, or actually one of your people have. And so I got another master's. I got my master's in library science in 2011, and so now my second career is I'm a law librarian, and so it's just been wonderful. But when I came to PLI, I was astonished at the collection. I mean, Matthew Bender has a decent collection. We have, good flagship titles and more now since we're owned by a conglomerate. But PLI has everything under the sun. It's just astonishing. So that was lovely to find out. So Susan, I'm going to stay with you. I want to ask you about generative AI, if I could. I'd love to know how you guys are using that, how Wachtell's using it in research and in writing and in the library and in the firm, whatever you care to share about that.
Well, that's a very interesting question. And if you had asked me that a month ago, I would have given you a very different answer. But after quite a long time of trying to figure out how we could deploy AI, what products we could deploy, whether they really were safe for us to use with client confidential information,
right.
We have in the past few weeks rolled out a whole bunch of AI products. And that includes everything from, in the research sector, we have Westlaw Precision with AI. We have the Bloomberg Law AI Assistant. And we also have more generic products like Microsoft Copilot. We have some transactional products like Kira and Noetica. I don't know if you've heard of those, but we've rolled out a bunch of things. And now that we've rolled them out, we actually put into place an AI policy, which when you look at it, it seems like everything in it is so self-evident, right? But it was very hard to write that policy.
And you have to spell it out.
And say, this is what you can do, this is what you should do. We are looking at a lot of other AI products. We're very concerned about some of the products that do drafting, because we have kind of assured our clients that our lawyers are going to do the drafting,
right.
Because that's what they've come to expect. But then again, we have clients that have been asking for these AI products. So we rolled them out. We're also working very hard on putting together training programs of every sort, training on particular platforms. I'd like to see more training on crafting prompts, because I think prompts are everything.
Yeah.
And if you do the right prompt, you'll get a good output, and educating people how careful they have to be with the outputs and which products to use. And also in the products that we are continuing to look at, which are many, because every day there's a new one.
Right.
The choice between whether we will go with some full-fledged platform like Harvey that does a lot of different things, or we will go with individual things that do individual tasks or automate them, is something. But I firmly believe, and I know there are a lot of other people who believe that too, that the thing you need to do is you need a use case. You need to determine why you're going to get this AI product, and then look at products that address your particular pain point or your use case. I don't think you can start with getting a product first and saying, oh, this is a great product, and now we're going to find uses for it. I don't think you can. I don't think that's the way to go. And so hopefully, we're going in that direction now, where the people who are the bête noirs of this rollout are the IT security people. I can't overestimate what a strong role they have in everything. And this is a fairly recent year's developments that, you have to pass muster with IT security before you can roll out anything.
Right. Were you involved very much in the decisions? Were you involved very much in the decisions about?
I am involved. There's a group of us. We're sort of like a subcommittee of our technology committee. And the group of us consists of people, well, there are a couple of partners who are the stakeholders here and pushing it forward, which is what you really need. You need to get somebody at that level to push it.
Right.
But the people in the group are people who, I won't say, maybe own is the wrong word, who own the product, such as I, in theory, own Westlaw because it's a research product, and other people own other products because they do other things.
Okay, thank you. And what do you see the future of GAI? What do you see as the future of GAI in law firms?
Well, I think it could automate a lot of routine work. I think in the research, I don't really feel so qualified to say, what it's going to do for the attorneys. Because although I've been here for 25 years and in other law firms before that, I have an understanding of terms and research and what people are looking for and what these things mean. But how they get used, how you actually put together a deal, how you draft a contract, not so much. So I would say that in the research sphere, I think we're going to see more and more use of AI for different use cases, things that we maybe couldn't find with a Boolean search, we might be able to find with AI now. And so, we'll want to continue rolling out products that do things in the research sphere that are useful to us or that are difficult to do now. Finding, for instance, you want this parameter and this parameter, but it happened within 2 weeks after that thing happened.
Right.
There aren't so many databases that can allow you to do that, but possibly AI might be a solution for that.
Right. Thank you. David, on to you. You've been nodding and you're an attorney. And if you could talk to me, are you guys using AI or generative AI in your work? And what do you see the future of AI being?
Well, I'll preface by saying my bar status is retired and I don't practice anymore. But I coach partners and practice group leaders, and I've spoken with associates, and I was at Legal Week recently where, to Susan's point, it was almost like every booth's company name had AI in it.
Yep.
And, it reminds me of the 90s when there were hundreds of companies with .com in their name. And everybody's, trying to catch fire in the generative AI opportunities out there. What I'm hearing from clients is there's excitement, but concern. And I spoke earlier in the year at a New York State Bar Association conference, and I attended a AI panel where a partner was telling a story about an expert who used AI to create the expert report, and it created 3 phony academic studies that were not identified. And on cross-examination, that expert did not do well.
Right.
And the attorneys who retained that expert were significantly sanctioned by the judge. So it doesn't solve all your problems. It's an incredible tool. It's constantly evolving and developing, My question is, how does it impact associate learning and training? And what I'm hearing from law firms who broadly embrace AI is that associates are going to learn in smaller groups. Firms may decide to develop fewer associates to do broader work. But I think it also puts the emphasis on team collaboration. As Susan said, it's great for repetitive work and maybe lower level work, but it's still not writing the greatest brief in the world. And that still requires significant knowledge and experience and brain power and perspectives from different practice areas. So to have those cross-department collaborations and communications requires significant teamwork, effective communication and collaboration, and how to manage all that. And that goes back to the leadership skills we were talking. So, as Natalie and I write in our book, just because you have technical expertise doesn't make you a great leader or manager. It's also having these humanistic skills to help drive the performance to utilize this tool to its optimal capabilities.
And I want to add something too about AI, at least in the research sphere. Some vendors will tout it as saving you so much time.
Right.
I don't think that's so, because yes, you're going to get an answer that's maybe more fulsome than just getting a list of results and having to look at each one, but you still have to spend so much time verifying that the output is accurate, that the citations are pertinent, that
Right.
the what it's telling you is real.
Right.
That I think you make up some of that time that you might have gained, and at least in that sphere, I don't see it as a time saver. I hope that it will give people better research outputs, but I don't think it will save them time.
I think you're right.
I still remember using digest to get to the reporters, to get to
Right.
the appellate decisions. So
Right. Thank you. And Natalie, on to you. Do you use AI or GAI in the work that you're doing? And what do you see the future of GAI? What do you see as the future of GAI?
So certainly use AI in the work that we do. And I have found, I'm listening to Susan. Yeah, it helps us to I would say, elevate our work. It helps us to elevate our work, but we still have to pay attention to what the outcome is. And of course, edit and modify and make it the best work that we can do with the expertise that we have. So I completely agree with that. When I look at AI also, I've been a little bit, we're a small business. I've been on the sidelines here and watching as our clients adopt AI. And to me, I feel like if the metaphor were a child, I feel like it went from infancy and we're sort of in toddler, moving maybe to preteen, it's getting adopted. Like Susan said, which tool, find out what works. I think we're still watching for all of that. Through the leadership lens, what I'm paying attention to is, first of all, the folks that are either leading the cause, like Susan mentioned, the IT folks, to what capacity they're effective is, bringing these tools in and getting the buy-in from others. And, it's a change management process, right? This is human beings going through massive change really quickly.
Yes.
Right.
So there will be some folks within their firms and organizations. And, in the book, we talk about, are you a change resistor or a change embracer? Are you somewhere in between? And so there's this human element also for this to be successful that we believe people need to pay attention to if they really want to make sure that as these tools are being integrated into their business, that it's being done successfully. Because again, people are part of it. And personally, I think as David and I see and witness, we don't want to lose the human element here in the workplace, right? We'll go back to where we started with Susan. We don't do this alone. We do this together. Leadership is personal. It's with people. So we pay attention to, we want to use these tools well, elevate our work. And like, again, Susan said, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be working. We're going to be working still just as hard, just in a different way. And we hope to help folks adapt to that as smoothly as possible, because that's what a leader's responsibility is now, to make sure, again, people are equipped and comfortable and confident about embracing these tools and using them. And that's the piece that we pay attention. I think David and I are really weren't noticing, and I'm sure you're probably reading about this as librarians, but this as the AI becomes more and more entrenched, folks within the organizations, what's going to stand out will be their people-centered skills. How well are they bringing people along for the ride? Collaborating, as David said. And these fall under that umbrella of emotional intelligence. It falls under the umbrella of self-awareness. And those are the team players. Those are the talent that the firms and organizations are going to really be valuing and looking for. And we're all somewhere on the spectrum, Karen, right? So we want to think about what are our human element skills? What do they look like? And again, that's exactly what this book is about. Scenarios that every day people encounter that, can be a little tough or challenging. And how can I reframe this so I can make this a positive experience for myself and those people in my firm, rather than it being a stressful, agonizing experience. And if we can do that, people will feel more confident, there'll be better workplaces, and work gets elevated.
Wonderful. Tell us the name of your book, the full name of the book.
Oh, sure. Here you go. I happen to have a copy right now. It's called Beyond the Courtroom, Proven Strategies from the Legal Field for Leadership, Emotional Intelligence, and Well-Being in the Modern Workplace. And one thing I think we're really proud of, we built it as a training tool for people that want to learn. So at the end of each column now, there are key actions and takeaways. So if this column resonates with you, there's some things that you can do to help your behavior align with what you just read. And so we wanted it to be practical. And then at the end of each chapter, we created these case studies that all take place in law firms. And then there's a facilitator guide. So if someone wanted to start a discussion with their team, right, or a discussion with a group of partners, to start thinking about those human-centered skills that will help move them through the changes that are happening in our firms, AI certainly being one of them. So we hope it's a really handy tool for folks for learning. And we're happy, we hope it's a helpful tool. Dave,
Thank you. It certainly sounds like it will be. And so thank you for phrasing all of that so beautifully. So all of us are in the business of making the workplace friendlier and more productive and more comfortable and also challenging for all of our team members. Yeah. Susan, closing with you, is there anything else that you would like to say that I haven't asked you about, or anything you'd like to share?
I would just like to add that the fact that PLI is publishing this book indicates kind of the breadth of PLI's interests. And I think PLI is kind of really unlike any other institution in that they cover a lot of bases, both in terms of content, the breadth of the content, and the mission of what you do. And your staff is also excellent. I've dealt with our rep, Haley, is always in contact with me, and I just like working with PLI a lot.
Thank you. And I want to thank thank all of you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. It's been just a delight to spend an hour with each of you. And so I want to thank you for that. I'm so appreciative.
Inviting us, Karen. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. Our pleasure.
Thank you, Karen.
Yes.
You're most welcome.
Thanks for listening to The Practicing Law Librarian, part of PLI's Ever Current podcast. Be sure to subscribe and listen to our latest episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. And to learn more about the Practicing Law Institute, please visit pli.edu. To learn more about PLI Plus, which provides electronic access to the full collection of PLI Press publications, and schedule a demo with a member of our team, please visit pli.edu/plus. Please note that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast represent those of the individuals being interviewed and not necessarily those of PLI.